2020, I think was the last time Kalani
Yep.
dropped an album with It Was Good Until It Wasn't, which I don't know if it was on either of our top albums of the year, but I know that Grieving made it
Mm,
onto at least my honorable mentions, if not my top 10 from that year. A song with
yes.
James Blake that I really love. Listened to again today, listened to a decent amount. It's on one of my favorite playlists I have. It's always great. And Kalani just feels like an artist that's been consistently interesting and like part
Mm,
of like the consciousness, but maybe not like leveling up in the way that I had expected her to. But every time she does pop up, I'm like, oh yeah, she's really great. Where does she sit kind of in your like
uh,
sphere of female artists right now?
that's a great question. Blue Water Road is her third album, but she also has three mixtapes, so it's really her sixth, you know, official release. And she's only just turned 27, so she's really been popping since she was a teenager. It's been a long time, almost 10 years. Uh, so there's a lot to go on. But in that sense, she kind of predates like the modern like female R&B wave that we
Mhm.
have right now. And I don't necessarily always think of her when I think of the current like female R&B wave, but she's right up there. She should be right up there because I think she has the versatility and variety in her catalog to this point that not all of her contemporaries have. When that's including male R&B singers as well. And I think that's what's so appealing about Kalani is that she can really switch it up and go in different directions, and that's what's so appealing. So I definitely think she's one of the best, and it's interesting to note that most of her like chart success, most of her hits or platinum certifications, that was all early part of her career, to be honest, around like the first album, 2017. More recently, she's kind of slowed it down a little bit more, gotten more artistic, gotten more personal, and it hasn't been as successful on the charts, even if she's still having like big first week sales and stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see how she kind of goes up and down and moves as she really seems to make the kind of music she wants to make because there's quite a bit of range already.
Yeah, I think that range is displayed fairly well on this album. It's funny because if you go back and you listen to some of the tracks from like While We Wait, or even a couple off of It Was Good Until It Wasn't, I think there's moments where you like kind of like you talked about, you can kind of say like, oh, she sounds a lot like SZA, or there's a lot of like LMI kind of in here, and she can kind
Mm,
of get lumped in, and then it can kind of like the track changes to the next one, and a whole new sound comes on. You're like, oh yeah, Kalani is, I think, a little bit more outside the box at times, and I think that's demonstrated really well in this album for me in the transition from the first three tracks, Little Story, Any Given Sunday, Shooter Interlude, and then you get Wish I Never. And that like beat comes in with that, like, I don't even know what it is, like an old hip hop hooray, like type drum beat in the background. And she's just kind of like bouncing over it. I'm like, ooh, this is something different that you don't typically hear from a lot of female R&B artists nowadays. So I think then you get into Up at Night with Bieber, which I thought was actually pretty great. And it was nice to hear Bieber continue to put out some good stuff. Feels like he's kind of found his footing again after some, not so good moments in the past and the last couple.
changes.
Yeah, changed exactly. But yeah, I think overall my takeaway from Blue Water Road was just Kalani remains interesting. She remains an R&B, female pop artist who's just pushing boundaries, but still kind of comfortable with who she is, which is nice. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I think there's the range is on this very album, and you have great examples of I think various eras sounds
Mm.
in the Kalani catalog to this point. Uh, Any given Sunday, track two featuring Blast, man, that one is very reminiscent of her debut single "Fuck with You" (FWU). Like
Mm.
Kalani, not afraid to mix in some hip hop flows, repping the Bay there. On top of that, it I think Wish I Never is kind of along the same along the same lines because that up tempo drum line is very reminiscent of hip hop, and that's because it's actually a sample from Slick Rick's Children's Story, one of the classic golden age rap songs. And I think she just has like an amazing line in that. It's like call me daddy for all your bitches in the lobby, in front of all your bitches in the lobby, however she says it. It's like I think
Wow.
Wish I Never and Any Given Sunday, as well as Up at Night, which you mentioned with Bieber, are that's just like a kind of a perfect encapsulation of like what Kalani used to do, but it also kind of makes sense in what she's doing now because she can mix it in with songs later on the track list like Melt,
Mm.
which are much more traditional, slower R&B tracks. So I'm always going to gravitate toward these more upbeat songs, but it's really great on my end to hear that she's still got these in her because I think these
Yeah.
are some of her best tracks.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And another track I'd kind of put in that same mold for me of the songs that blew me away, at least in terms of production, was Alter. I think some of the
Mm,
delivery on that and the singing is a lot more traditional sounding R&B, but some of that production is almost kind of like beach housey in a sense, and it has that like moment where it breaks into the chorus, and that chorus is just so sticky. She just sings it in such a beautiful way. It's really, really impressive. And on top of those tracks you mentioned, and then a couple at the end there. I was a little disappointed with Wondering Wandering. You get Thundercat on that, and
mm.
I think I kind of
Yeah,
expected that to pop a little bit more. But I think start to finish, this was a really great listen, and Kalani's just really nice to have in our lives. Like she's someone that
totally.
whenever we have to listen to her, I'm like, oh, nice Kalani album. Never disappointed with it.
Totally, totally. Also, want to shout out More Than I Should, the song with Jesse Reyes, specifically the production, because if you listen in the beginning of the song, you can hear something that sounds very reminiscent to Genuine's Pony, the
Mm.
like that, the production on Pony that everyone knows. It's not credited as an official sample at this time, but I swear that's where that's lifted from. Very immediately brought me back.
Yeah, that's a great call. I was listening to it. And I was like, huh. Like it was like definitely unlocking something, but I wasn't sure. But I think that was probably it. Um, just another song I just wanted to give a little notice to is Sid is on "Get Me Started," the
Mm,
track after the one with Up at Night with Bieber. A bit bit forgettable for me out of I
yeah.
think all the moments with guests on this. The Jesse Reyes track you mentioned. I think even some of their like back and forth and the way that's produced with their like vocals interplaying is a lot more memorable. But Sid almost kind of like came away on this for me, and I was a little disappointed.
I agree. I just don't know if they're the best match, honestly. Sid just
Yeah,
by design doesn't have a bite like that,
yeah.
whereas Kalani has a lot of bite. I just don't think they didn't juxtapose each other, I think, the way they thought it would. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that one either.
um, any other thoughts on this? I mean, we're gonna probably add one or two songs to the playlist, but any other thoughts?
No, I think it's quite good. I hope Kalani continues to stay mainstream. This is another Atlantic release. She's still, and hopefully this gets more promo than her last record did, where she had kind of some back and forth with the label over the release timing and stuff like that. But I mean, if we recall, like due to all her connections and all that, Kalani's had some big features recently on some great tracks. They look no further than the Charlie Puth joint, the Cardi song, Heebie Jeebies with Amine, Playing with Me with Kyle. Like she's got some big features. Of course, the Suicide Squad song is a monster track. Like I'm looking forward to hearing more of her on other people's music too, because she's also proven that she's a great guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Kalani's fantastic. Go check her out. The songs we had from her album onto our Nostalgia Best of 2022 playlist on Spotify.